This summer, thousands of people gathered to watch the final in the World Cup, and a ticket cost between $5,000 and $18,000 just to get in. That's a value system that says, I value that, and all of us value something. Worship is our response to what we value most. And as we go into this Christmas season, the challenge for each one of us is to put Jesus right at the center and to value him above all things and to be worshipers of Jesus. I think about the Magi that gathered, these guys who had so much and had significance before man, had wealth, and yet this little tiny baby in their presence, God incarnate, and they bring their gifts before him and they kneel before him and they worship. I know for you and I, as we follow Jesus, sometimes it's easy for us to have just kind of a monotonous, kind of mundane thought process when it comes to, oh yeah, well, of course, Jesus. But when you think about the disciples, there were these moments when they did life with Jesus where suddenly his magnificence and who he is just kind of broke out. There's the moment where Peter recognizes after Jesus brings in all the fish, and all of a sudden Peter's got this big catch, and he says, I'm a sinful man. And he recognizes Jesus is bigger than I can imagine. Or the moment where the disciples, and after Jesus calms a storm, they say, who is he? Imagine they're doing life with him, but they can't really grasp, man, he's bigger than I could ever fathom or imagine. You see it even after the crucifixion and then the resurrection, where John on the island of Patmos, Jesus appears to him, and John, even though he'd been really close to Jesus and he'd been the one that sat next to him at the Last Supper and was done life with him, and Jesus talked to him on the cross, and yet when Jesus appears to him, John falls as though dead, like a dead man, and Jesus says, don't be afraid. So as you and I go into this season, let's let Jesus break through. Let's have just one piece of who he is kind of uncover and unwrap, and let our value, our worship for who he is increase. Because when we see him, when we get new glimpses of who he is, what he's like, what he's done, then our worship, just like the disciples, just like the Magi, our worship increases.